Hi, my name is Tehreem Chaudhry. I'm from Lawrence, Kansas, and I'm an actor. So I grew up in Lawrence, Kansas. I was born and raised there to Pakistani immigrants. Lawrence is a very great place to be raising families and whatnot. It's a nice college town. So it can get a little rambunctious at times, but when you are on the other side of it, you don't see it. You don't notice. Being on KU campus is very different than actually being a part of Lawrence. Involved in a lot of school activities, orchestra, choir, debate, forensics, like that kind of kid. So I actually started doing theater in middle school. So that was where that's where I started playing with it. I think that I really enjoyed the element of storytelling, but I didn't quite realize that this is what I want to do with my life. I didn't realize that actually for a very long time. And I'm not one of those people who actually has a story of this is when I realized. I'll tell people oh, this is when I realized, but it's bogus. I really don't know when it happened. I just know that it did, and it suddenly became something that I didn't want to stop doing. And it was I recognize that there are so many different paths that I can take, that I'm capable of doing a lot of other things, but I also recognize that if I did those things, I would not be satisfied. I would not be happy with my life if I didn't pursue this as a career professionally. Because, oh my gosh, this is so off topic, but when people talk about it as a hobby, when they say when they tell me, I'm doing theater, I'm an actor, oh, it's just your hobby, it's just for fun. I'm but it's not. That's the implication of calling it a hobby. But anyways, that's a whole other thing. When I was younger, I thought I was gonna be a singer. Then I realized I can't really sing. So I was oh, I'm gonna be a writer. I'm not the greatest writer either, but I do like stories a lot. I do like reading a lot. Wish I had more time to read, but yeah. I do love reading. So it was one of those things that when I started doing it in middle school, I was this is my favorite form of storytelling. This really resonates with me in a different way. I was actually gonna quit doing theater in 8th grade. So that was only after 2 years, because I started in 7th grade. Because I was I'm not getting any big roles. Surely this means that I'm not good, or I shouldn't be doing it. And then I had one of my teachers, she didn't threaten me, but it was a vague, so I went to her classroom on the last day of school, and I was basically just I loved having you as a teacher, you mean so much to me. And she was you're gonna continue doing theater, right? I'm gonna go to the shows. I'll see you. And I was oh, I can't say no. I can't disappoint her. So that did serve as a motivating factor. But then after that, once I did get to high school, that was when I felt I was creating a little bit more of a community, and I did start to really, really delve into it and begin to enjoy it to a whole other level, where it felt like something that I couldn't not do. Everything that I've done in Kansas City so far, theater-wise, has been with KC Public. So it started with them my freshman year. They did a reading of a play called Her Own Devices by Lindsay Adams, and I was in that reading. And then the following year, they did a staged version of it, and they asked me to come back for it, and I did that my sophomore year. And then my junior year, right before the pandemic, I was in another show with them called Mirrors by Caitlin Gould. And so that kind of has capped my major theater appearances within Kansas City. But I've also done pop-up bars with KC Public. And most recently, I was part of their Ghost Stories. It's not a pop-up, but Ghost Stories thing that they were doing. And it was lovely. It was one of those things where they were do you want to write something? And I was it might not be good, but I'll do it. I'll try my hand at it. And they were great about it. They're wonderful. Immediately after I graduated, I was in Flagstaff, Arizona with Flagstaff Shakespeare Festival. And that was like a game changer for me. That was when I kind of realized, oh, like, I think Shakespeare is something that I would like to continue pursuing and something that I would like to do. I'm a major contemporary person. I love new works. But then I was like, okay, I could definitely do a balance of this. I definitely see that I feel like I know what I'm doing when it comes to Shakespeare. So that kind of helped motivate me to continue doing it. And also, Shakespeare's brilliant. So I think being a South Asian in theater or South Asian actor in the United States in general is still very difficult in this time and period. And it's also very hard to see myself represented in basically any city that I'll go to. Even like New York or LA, you won't see it all that often, which might be like shocking to some, but you look at the numbers and it's like, well, it makes sense. But no, that is something that I do hope will start to get better over time, where we see hopefully just more South Asians here. Time will tell whether or not that actually happens. But I think that it would help in terms of creating a community of, like, a truly diverse community, to have more Middle Eastern, South Asian, North African, Native American actors within the scene, because it's something that it's either we don't have it currently or we do have it, they're just not getting the representation that they need in order to even be seen or to be known within this community, and that's a tragedy in itself. I do hope that it will get better over time, and I do also think that for me, a lot of the answer lies in casting all people of color in roles where it doesn't like hinge upon them being a person of color. That to me comes off as true diversity, because then it's like, oh, you're not casting me just because I'm Black or just because I am Asian. I deserve this role. I deserve to be here. I deserve to have a place at the table. And you're showing me this now, because you could have easily cast a white person in this role, but you can't randomly cast a white person in a role that belongs to a Black person or someone who's Latinx or someone who's Asian, because that would be wrong. So you can do it, but your company will not last if you do. Yeah, and that's something that I don't know. I mean, I hope it will start to happen. It's really important that it does happen, and it is happening to a certain extent. Mindy Kaling made this series called Never Have I Ever. It's out on Netflix. It's been out for like 2 years, I want to say, and like the new season came out in July. And yeah, that was one of those things where I was like, oh, whoa, like a South Asian lead, that it didn't have to be this way, but it's still telling the story of a South Asian, but it's putting her in the context of, it's very real because it's in the context of the United States and like her being here without it being like, oh, my family's poor, oh, like religion is like suffocating me, like, so it doesn't feel like it's a brown story for a white audience. It feels like it is a brown story for everyone to be able to relate to, and you don't immediately say like, oh, this is a story that's only for South Asians. It's something that everyone can connect to, and that's something that is very important to me. Which is also not to say that you shouldn't also tell other stories that do feel very specifically aligned with their race, but it is nice to have a gradient of options, rather than being like, it's this or that. Yeah. So, like I said, it can go two ways. It can be like we really like attach ourselves to what we said before and hold ourselves accountable and progress and make sure that these stories are told. Make sure Black, Brown, Asian folks have the opportunity to tell these stories and to tell other stories and are seen on stages, so that, you know, like kids can come to these and see themselves on stage, because that is a whole other experience. Something that I wish that I had, that I quite frankly just didn't. Or it can go the other route. I feel like I just went back to I always go back to down to the negative, because for me, I think it's really hard for me to see a world in which we do really progress towards equity, just because I have heard this said again and again and again and again in different ways. And I truly want to believe that it is different. But I can also see how easy it would be to pull back and just continue doing the same thing that you're doing over and over again, because that was easy. It was so easy to just live the way that we were in like 2019, and to cast the way we were casting in 2019 and feel good about ourselves for putting one brown person on stage or for putting one black person on stage and being like, yeah, I did that. But that isn't what we're asking for. That's not true diversity, and you know that. So I don't know. I don't know. I have a weird thing where if people try and pronounce it the proper way and they get it wrong, I get weirdly angry. So I purposely do the Americanized version. And I like the Americanized version of my name too.
What's the Americanized version?
Tehreem.
Tehreem.
Mm-hmm.
What's the accurate version?
Tehreem.
Tehreem?
Mm-hmm.
Tehreem?
Yeah. And it's not Chaudhry, it's Chaudhry.
Say it?
Chaudhry.
Chaudhry. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Mm-hmm. I feel like all this footage is gonna be like stuff and be like, no, that cannot be said, that cannot be said, that cannot be said.